Now to introduce today's host, President and CEO of AIIM, Peggy Winton. With over 30 years of program, product, and business development experience, Peggy is responsible for the strategic, technical, and business direction of AIIM. Peggy believes that marketing and technology are converging and moving to the forefront of the business in order to deliver the ultimate customer experience and adapt to a world that has shifted from physical to data, technology, and automation. Take it away, Peggy.
Well, thank you, Nina. Thank you so much. Want to make sure everybody's able to see the screen now. That's wonderful. Good. And I am really so excited to be sharing the stage today with a very distinguished individual. Let me make sure I've got this teed up right. Give me a moment. Yep, we do. That's fantastic. You'd kind of have to be living in a cave to miss sight of the fact that the M365 presence in enterprises today is really become ubiquitous. I think that's the word that most would use to describe it. And so it follows that a full 93% of the organizations surveyed by AIIM are using M365 in some fashion. Now, certainly, Microsoft enjoyed broad market share as a productivity tool before 2020, and we all know what happened then. It is that rush to support a work from home environment and just the rapid evolution of Microsoft Teams in particular as a front end to collaboration, information sharing, and knowledge management. That's caused that number to increase across the M365 platform. And the increase is due to more users and also broader utilization among existing users. So more and more people are jumping in, and the use and the take-up of it is expanding. And this massive growth clearly enables thousands of organizations to maintain the all-important connectivity and productivity, but it naturally presents some new levels of complexity in that process. This is probably a good time for me to stop and explain why AIIM, a product-neutral community focused on education, is focusing a webinar on, well, a product. Firstly, the challenges we're going to discuss today are certainly not unique to Microsoft. Any platform with an adoption at this kind of pace and scale is going to have the same growing pains, going to have the same levels of challenges. But neither are we shills, and that's sort of a harsh word, but neither are we shills for Microsoft. As you well know, the AIIM community is comprised of several solution options for enterprise level content and information management, and hundreds of complementary apps and add-ons. In many organizations, M365 is used alongside other content management suites. But I think there are some compelling reasons why we are very pleased and proud to feature Microsoft in this webinar, and why we're so excited to have them as a very prominent part of the upcoming AIIM conference in Denver. You saw a little preview there, and a nod to Nina as her first production webinar here. Firstly, its increasing role as a content management services system. 50% of AIIM community members would say that it's their primary content management solution. That's pretty profound. We've been talking about this for a long, long time. And in our State of the Intelligent Information Management research we've just completed, we haven't published it yet, we asked about the importance for you all to have a curated system for really tapping into your organizational knowledge. And almost 70% of you said that it was extremely important. You realize how necessary it is to have a way to curate your organizational intelligence. And I think that's actually a phrase that Microsoft has used in the past. Because content is often the carrier and the container for that knowledge, we followed up with another question about whether you all had an explicit strategy and supportive systems that actually encourage content collaboration, particularly across virtual workforces and organizational boundaries. It's not just our internal customers we've got to accommodate, but our external ones as well. And happily, 60% of you do. So it's not surprising that at the top of the list of solutions for that content collaboration is M365, be it Teams or SharePoint. And there's no wonder then that one of the main reasons that folks have agreed to join us in Denver is to join work sessions and iterative collaborative sessions about how to simply optimize their M365 investment. And we're going to hear a little bit more about how we're going to accomplish that there. But what are the things that you all tell us you want to learn how to optimize, where you may be feeling like you aren't adequately using some of the tools that are there? Well, as we said, the desired functionality and the symptomatic challenges that go with it, and with any content services platform, are also present with M365. AIM users in particular really want to know how to move unstructured and semi-structured content to the cloud. While most of you have certainly made the move or planning to continue your push to the cloud over the next 2 years, it's still a challenge for over half of you. So we want to make sure we want to address that. Are there fears of security? Are there fears of breaking some well-established processes in that? We want to get to the bottom of that. There's obviously a growing desire to leverage document-centric collaboration. A lot of our collaboration is document-oriented. We're working on projects together, or we're trying to serve our customers with contracts and onboarding forms, and automating how work moves through our organization to support key business processes, particularly those for a demanding customer, internal and external. It's an area of concern and challenge for a lot of you. Ideally, any of you who are M365 administrators, you want to be able to apply flexible, and that's the operative word, flexible protection actions that come with Microsoft, like encryption, access restrictions, and visual markings. And the sheer variety and volume of information being created now, it's no longer in the hand of any a specialist. It's been democratized. All of us can get involved with that. That obviously creates some concerns around content sprawl and applying some sort of governance over all of that. So when we ask again, where are you finding the biggest challenge? You say, protecting data and information effectively to minimize threats through access management. That's by far the top business driver for most of you, even over just general compliance concerns. And I think that points to the growth that we talked about earlier in the increasing number of collaborators, both across and outside of organizations. So finally, simply keeping up with new versions of releases and what those new capabilities or what new functionality comes with that is a challenge for a lot of you folks. And that's something we can definitely address when we see you in Denver. So what's our advice? You know, there's a lot of wringing of hands sometimes and gnashing of teeth anytime folks are told this is what you're going to do. But the people have spoken, at least their organizations have. And this is where people work. And this is where they live. And that's our advice. Get to know the capabilities there and find out how you can help users manage their content in place. Become an expert on where M365 intersects with your most important business processes and help them solve the usability problems there. I think you can leverage out of the box capabilities more than you think you might. And it's hard for any of us to keep track of everything that's out there. I think sometimes it's a big black hole and we just don't know what's possible. And nobody wants a solution or a tool that you're just tapping and just dipping your toe on the surface there. And I think information management and information governance folks who are with us and coming to Denver can really help fill in gaps with what they know about how information is captured and shared. But when you can't, there's certainly a whole host of complementary add-ons in apps and also partners. There's a whole M365 community of experts. So our just completed research has unveiled a pretty profound discovery about the difference between organizations that have come out of the COVID crisis with improvements in the alignment between their information management strategies and their business strategies, and those who the needle hasn't really moved very much, or heaven forbid, it's actually gotten worse. And without giving too much away, because that'll be the basis for our published report in a few weeks and my keynote remarks, let's just say that a key success factor for those giving themselves a higher score really has to do with the extent to which they know where their key information assets are, and they can get it to those who need it when they need it, with the ability to make those insights readily available for future knowledge and making good decisions. I'd like to say, enable your internal customers first. So Chris, welcome. Your AIM general session is entitled People-Centered Work, Building a Digital Employee Experience. Wow. People at the heart of why we're in all this. What a concept. And isn't it great that our findings in research align so much with your key initiatives? So this is where I turn things over to you and ask you to tell us what you mean by people-centered work, and how is people-centered work fully supported by M365? Where do you get the most questions from your customers? Because you got a whole bunch of them. And then what's your team going to be focusing on when we get together in Denver?
Sure. Thanks, Peggy. It is wonderful to be able to speak to so many members here at AIM. And it's a great question about what people-centric work is. I could take the clever response and say it's exactly the same as it was the last time we had an AIM conference, because nothing has changed in the past 24 months. Obviously, the whole nature of work and the transformations that have been going on have really accelerated over the past 2 years. And many of the same drivers that you were talking about, the move to cloud, the importance of information protection, those have just become paramount during the past 2 years of the pandemic. Microsoft, I think, is in a unique position because all of these changes, while they represent tremendous opportunity, we recognize how widely distributed our platforms and experiences are. And I think we also have a responsibility to make sure that we are helping organizations and individuals navigate all of these shifts. About 2 years ago, we committed to a long-term range of thought leadership through our work lab called the Work Trend Index, where We reach out to tens of thousands of customers and non-customers and analysts and looking at what trends are going on in the market. And we'll talk about those here in just a minute. But one of the things that we've really observed over the past 2 years is how much individuals have felt disconnected from each other, from their information during all the work shifts that have been going on. And when we look at many of the traditional measures, business success, profitability, employee retention, decision-making time, organizations that put that focus on the individual and on individual well-being are better positioned to take advantage and to address those real needs. And so from Microsoft's perspective, that really informs a lot of the decisions and ways that we shape our roadmap, which we'll be looking at here in a few minutes. So I could talk at sort of a lofty level about all of our high goals for addressing employee experience and well-being, but I think it's really important to look at the numbers. And so we just published the latest edition of our Work Trend Index last week. And looking at what's going on there, and I want to unpack these a little bit here. If you want to explore them in more detail, there's a link here on the slide, which we can add to the chat here in just a minute. But in terms of where we are right now, obviously we are, knock on wood, nearing the end of this pandemic. And as much as remote work was a theme 2 years ago and hybrid work has become an emerging theme 12 months ago, return to work is really top of mind. And so what we're seeing is that employees are really starting to figure out, is my work worthwhile to me? And making sure that that balance between their needs and the organization needs is being met. And with that, managers are reporting that they are feeling less empowered to address those rising expectations in the workforce. One of those is, as people come back to the office, why should I? A lot of folks have been working remotely just fine for the past 2 years without a commute. So if we want to add commutes on top of that, is it worth it? Are we going to find the information and the contacts and the collaboration along with the rest of the systems that go with that to make gathering together appropriate? We've also seen that, also looking at our use of the service, that as work has shifted, we can tell from the timeframes that flexible work, even though the time span that we have has expanded. Many people are starting work at 7 in the morning. They may be concluding before or after dinner time, wherever they happen to be, but that's not continuous. We are seeing employees kind of renegotiate kind of the terms of where they are working and how they're interacting with information. And so looking at some of the numbers, one thing we like to look at is what we call the hybrid paradox. And again, this is based on looking at about 30,000 people. 73% of the folks surveyed expect flexible remote work to stay, and 67% want there to be more in-person work. So if you do the math, there are people who are on both sides of that reporting line. People want both flexible work and the ability to come back into the office. And when we ask about why, the numbers are identical. 58% of the people say they want to go to the office because that is where they can do their focused best work. And 58% also say they want to stay at home because that's where they do the best work. So no one size fits all approach is appropriate, not even at the individual level, if you look at the math. Some people have done very well with remote work. When we do follow-up surveys, we found that many folks who are longer tenured in role or in an organization report they're doing great with all of this. But the benefits of all of this transformation are not yet equally divided. People who are new to organizations, new to career, new in role, report that they feel obliged to work twice as hard, twice as fast to maintain the right levels of visibility in organization. Frankly, it can be too hard to find information or get answers to questions when some of the traditional tools of walking down the hallway and asking a colleague are not really possible in all of these new flexible work times. So over the past year, industry analysts have been talking a lot about what's called the Great Reshuffle or the Great Resignation. more than half of the workforce puts their own individual well-being and health ahead of work compared to where it was before the pandemic. So that's a huge shift, along with the fact that nearly 20% of the folks we surveyed have changed jobs during the past year, during the pandemic. And when we look at some of those younger sides of the workforce, more than half are considering shifting their employment in the year ahead. Now, that's disruptive to individuals. It's obviously can be disruptive to the organization because that talent drain becomes harder and harder to make sure that the information that people have in their heads doesn't walk out the door with them when they go to the next organization. Even though sometimes they're not walking out a door, they're staying exactly at the same kitchen table where they've been for the past 5 years. So employees are really looking for organizations to make information and work worthwhile. And when we talk to management, they feel a little bit trapped because they have that rising tide of expectations. Please make the office worthwhile. And in that, not just the physical space, but all the systems that are going into that. Is it a great experience? Is it easy for me to find experts, get answers to questions, get to the content that I need? Top leadership, half or more expecting to move to full-time return to work. And with the average employee expecting to not return to work. What's interesting is that management is feeling increasingly that leadership is drifting away from that employee well-being expectation, and that they're looking for ways at the management level to make sure that they have the right tools and resources to influence the change that they need for employees, to make sure that that entire deal that comes with employment is worthwhile for everyone. This is not about pay, but this is about the constellation of experiences that go into your work life. My division at Microsoft, in fact, we used to talk about modern workplace. We talk about modern work because work is now a set of patterns and experiences that I need to be able to execute wherever I happen to be, whether I'm in my home, whether I'm here in my office, or someplace in between. Additionally, when we look at what's coming up, workers are increasingly expecting to be hybrid. At Microsoft, within my team alone, more than 90% of our workforce is expecting to be flexible, to come to the office 1 to 2 days a week and remain at home 2 to 3 days a week. And with that, understanding why you should come in the first place is super important. And so, what's emerging are these standards for how we work together, how we inform each other, how we collaborate. Things that were just taken for granted in years past are really important to resurface and make sure folks are at the right level of expectation. So that's kind of fundamentally what we see going on across the market, and what really shapes some of the tools and experiences we have around information. And so for us, we are thrilled to be able to come back to AIM. 5-6 years ago, when I led Microsoft back to the AIM conference, we've really discovered it's such a worthwhile community and such a worthwhile event for learning. It's a chance for us to just talk to you and listen and find out where we're doing well and where we can meet those shifting expectations as we've looked at. And some of that's been reflected in the product goodness that we've been bringing to market over the past 2 years. And some of those things we're going to be amplifying at the AIM conference next month. So since we last gathered at the conference, there's 2 new tools around information management that address both the needs of how we work with content and how we work with each other. So Syntex is our AI-powered content services platform. And Syntex was released about 1.5 years ago. And it originally provided, and still does, capabilities to let you build no-code AI models to read, classify, tag, and secure information. So you can teach the cloud how to read your documents the way you do, to figure out, is this a contract? Is this a purchase order? Is this an invoice? Pull out that data and make sure that the right processes and security get applied. But since then, and very recently, we've rolled out a host of new capabilities in and around Syntex that we are going to be spotlighting at AIM. Those include the ability to do that process in reverse. Instead of looking at unstructured information and making it structured, looking at structured information and being able to dynamically build new content from the values that you add using these intelligent AI templates. We've also expanded. If you enrich content and you have the ability to bring content at scale, finding it and getting back to it is more important than ever. So new tools to let you search with precision using forms and natural language queries so you can drill in on just the piece of content you need to carry those processes forward, as well as the first of a series of accelerators looking at areas like contract management with more to come. So we will be at AIM. We'll be doing some spotlight sessions on syntax and being able to demo it from our booth. We'll have multiple stations where you can come and experience it with us there at AIM. So we're really excited about what we're doing with syntax. A little more focused on that user experience piece is what we've done with Microsoft Viva, which is our employee experience platform. And so Topics was also released about a year ago. Topics uses AI to look through all of your information, respecting security, to essentially create a Wikipedia-like first draft, organizing information, acronyms, definitions, documents, people into topic pages and topic cards. And those topic cards then surface dynamically in the apps you use every day, inside places like SharePoint, inside Office, inside Microsoft Search. And so we are just about to roll out a whole series of new integrations that we will also be talking about at AIM. So with those, you'll be able to get to those topics automatically from inside places like Teams, Outlook, and Yammer. We're also shipping new integrations that tie back to syntax, so that as syntax is finding, for example, a contract from a new customer, it can automatically tag that document, and then when it tags it, it can trigger the creation of that topic. So you have a completely indexed page of information about that customer, all respecting security. And as syntax tags new documents that match that customer, it will automatically pull that information onto those topic pages and topic experiences. So you can flexibly and automatically build your knowledge catalog over time just through the ways people are working with information through everyday work. So those are kind of the key news points that we're going to be exploring in even greater depth at the conference. And it's a chance for us to get feedback, to invite our customers, and whether you're a customer or not, to come to one of our design sessions and look at the future of our platforms and see what works, what doesn't, give us feedback, and help influence the future direction of this. So AIM for us is not just a chance for me to come and talk and listen, but we are bringing a fairly large team from Microsoft to Denver. So it is a great opportunity to get those one-to-one interactions with our product team itself, who build the products, as well as our global black belts who work in the field directly with customers to help envision and deliver solutions that are tied out to our platform. So we have a survey that's linked here. And if you go to aka.ms/KCS/AIM22/survey, if you'd like to meet with us and participate in one of these sessions, just fill that survey out. We'll be happy to reach out to you and get you scheduled for a session based on your areas of interest to meet with us one-on-one. It's one of the things that we love doing at the conference. For those of you who have not been to an AIM conference before, all I can say is, why not? It is such a fantastic place, not just to meet with organizations like Microsoft, but to connect with the rest of the AIM community. It's fun, it's distinctive. There's lots of tools and resources that Peggy and George and team put together to help you transition into this event, to find the networking and information you need. AIM has some wonderful traditions, some of which I don't fully understand how they got started, but you can't really have an AIM conference without a karaoke party. So whether you sing or watch, there's just plenty of great stuff to learn and plenty of great ways to stay entertained throughout the conference. Denver's a wonderful city, and we're really glad that we're coming back there. In addition, as I mentioned before, we will have 4 sessions at AIM. Peggy has already mentioned mine, which will be kicking off the morning of the 28th, focusing in more detail on what's going on with people-centered work. We'll also have deep dives with some customer success stories and product demonstrations, taking a look at Viva topics, at what we're doing with Syntex, and all of our information management, governance, and protection tools to be able to automatically apply scenarios like retention and security and encryption, how you can make sure that your entire information estate is protected while you're extending it into new processes and into new experiences. So, that is kind of a quick overview of what we have coming up, why we're doing it, and why we're bringing it to AIIM. We're really excited about being able to gather the community together down in Denver next month, and looking forward, to seeing you as well, Peggy. There's just a lot to catch up on, and really glad that we are all well and able to join.
Well, thank you. I went off camera so I could look at some of the questions that we had submitted before and during this. Can't thank you enough, Chris. I like the concept of black belts. I've been saying that your team are usability experts because, of course, they are. That's what it's all about. I mean, who better than your own team to answer some of those questions? And so much of what we've written about M365 optimization over the last year is it's in the tools, y'all. There's a lot you can do with what's already there. And sometimes it's just having somebody show you and give you the shortcuts like, oh my God. And that's what we really, really want to focus about. I want to have you answer Angel, and I'm going to pronounce it Angel's question. He said, perhaps this is too detailed, but wondering if there are any plans within SharePoint Online to create reusable content web parts.
Yeah, that's definitely a great question. So one of the key tools that we've announced last year that we'll spotlight actually in my keynote is a tool called Microsoft Loop. So Loop allows you to create these dynamic components. And when you embed these components, they can be things like a text paragraph, a voting table, an agenda. There's about 24 of these. So a loop component is stored once, and it happens to be stored on the back end inside of SharePoint. But when you attach it to an email or to a Teams chat or to as a part in a SharePoint web page, everyone sees a live view of the same information. So you can meet people where they want to be met and making sure that everyone is literally on the same page. So regardless of whether I'm experiencing that agenda voting table inside of an email or I'm going to the web page or somewhere in Teams, all of that capability and functionality can be extended. Loop itself is looking like it's going to be released within the next 12 months. That's about all I'm allowed to say at this point, but we'll definitely showcase that at the conference. Angel, great question.
Yeah, and obviously something that wasn't known, so that's great. Chris, I have to say that in the span of 24 hours, I've had 3 conversations about the employee experience as a business imperative. Interesting conversation yesterday with a lifelong records manager, information governance expert who has been hired by a really a large, impressive company precisely to own the employee experience. And you're thinking records management and employee experience. But this particular company lost 40% of its workforce when they were furloughed, and a bunch of those people just never came back. So you can imagine that the drive to recruit, maintain, make them happy is pretty significant. And this individual has taken what she knows about information governance and has really channeled the efforts to the why. And the ultimate why is people, making them happy.
It's really interesting if you look at the ways that what happens on the way to something being made a record. There's frequently a lot of collaboration, a lot of people have their fingers on it, and in days past, in the days of what we would have called ECM, when that thing is finally signed and marked as a record, it kind of moves somewhere else, never to be seen again. And the paradox is, with all that workforce churn, let's say that's a contract, that is the authoritative source of information. And so making sure that signal that something is a record is just such a powerful signal for how you mine that with AI, how you deliver it to people through search, because that frequently is the most important thing. I don't care about seeing, the draft 2 months before something was signed. I want to see the final copy. And that's, one of the, I think, profound ways that retention and records managers can really drive that experience forward for people. People get frustrated. Our data has shown that on average, people are spending nearly an hour a day looking for or recreating information when they can't find it. That's not just a huge productivity hole. That is tremendously frustrating, especially if you just joined the organization and you don't know where all of those key facts and details are. So any things that we can bring to the table to help you improve that findability and that experience are just, we're proud to be able to do that.
Well, can you speak to that a little bit? Because it was, I guess, right when you all launched Syntex, and I think it's right that you use the phrase organizational intelligence, and I really liked that over knowledge management. I always laugh. Who believes in knowledge? Yay, knowledge is good.
Right.
And it's one of those phrases that just kind of fell out of fashion. It's back, but it sort of means different things to people. Can you talk a little bit more about that and this findability, but also the curation aspect of it?
Yeah. So, there's, IDC has projected there's going to be something like 650 quadrillion documents out there in the world by 2025. And, even though all of them don't make their way to SharePoint, some days it feels like that. And so that's just a scale and a volume that is impossible for human minds to grasp. And that's a place where kind of our digital minds with AI can really be a powerful tool. So, in days of old, you would stamp something as a record physically and put it in a different vault. But AI can understand why those decisions get made, and in many cases, make or suggest those for us. So that, the idea of a records manager physically managing each record is probably not the place to go, but being able to use AI and combine those record signals with other data that we get about what information is most used, most shared, most sought. When people run a search, if we show them 5 files, which one do they click on? That all helps us bring signals in to personalize your experience, because the document, to answer your question, Peggy, might very well be different from the document that Nina's looking for, in, even within the AIM organization itself. So that's a journey that we've been on. We, again, want to make sure that the right security and compliance gets protected, but being able to use AI to deduce those patterns, to be able to make that organizational intelligence something that is powerful and at your fingertips, is something that, the pressure is on us. I think we're making good progress there, and of course, always more to do.
Absolutely. We've got about 2 minutes left, Chris, and I want to ask you something. I'm not sure you answer my question about, what's the number one question you get from the typical AIM conference attendee in terms of, will it do this, or how come it can't do that? And in tandem with that, as part of your answer, what else could you tell them, like you just told Angel? Thanks, Angel, for correcting the pronunciation. Is there any little known cool tip that you think people just don't know about or they aren't using?
So great question. Thanks for framing it up that way. I'd say the AIM audience, it's sort of a tie for the 2 most frequent questions we get. One is, what does all of this new capability mean for security? Like, I want to make sure we've invested heavily in making sure information is protected. How can we make sure that security and privacy in particular are being guaranteed? This is even more important when we start talking to our colleagues in the EU, where we have a strong tradition of individual worker protection in the workers' councils and so forth. So that's a place where we generally point people to our, not just our compliance standards, but the fact that in our service, even though everyone's important to us and faces and names are super important, everyone is just a number in the cloud. The information that we store, all of that signal about what's going to be personal to you on our side is depersonalized. So it's not intended to help someone else keep track of what is Peggy doing, what is she clicking on, what is she searching for. So that's one set of questions. The other set of questions is scale, like how many documents can I fit into M365? And the practical answer is as many as you like. We have many customers who are well into the billions. The theoretical max is somewhere in the trillions, which we still haven't come close to cracking. So those are probably the two most common questions. And the second part of that,
is there a tip or an out-of-the-box tool functionality that you just think, God, if only people really knew this, it could solve a lot of problems? You mentioned the loop with Angel, but what else?
But the best tip I can make is to use Teams whenever possible. And the reason for that, and it's the reason why the question that I would have told you I hear the most 5 years ago is, when do I use SharePoint and when do I use OneDrive? And so OneDrive is that personal app, your experience of your files, but it's also a storage destination. So people had these questions. The nice thing about working with Teams is it kind of makes that decision for you, because if I'm working one-on-one with you and I attach a file to a Teams chat, that file is going to automatically be stored for me inside of my OneDrive. But if we're in a collective group, if we're having a meeting with 6 people, that information gets stored inside SharePoint. So the tip I would make is to, when you're working with files, attach them to Teams, and Teams can make sure that it gets to the right place. So you have to think less about where I put information.
So the follow-up question from the audience, okay, in Teams, use Teams in channels or not, or both?
I personally am a big fan of Teams channels, especially if you are running meetings. You can schedule the meeting as if a recurring meeting to live inside of a channel. And what that means is if I miss a given week's meeting, all the advantages of there's always a recording, there's always a place I can go to find it, but it will collect all of those documents, all of those recordings, all the chat in one place, so that as people join the team later on, or if people are out from a given meeting, it's aggregating all that information for me in one place. So I highly recommend bringing that stuff into channels whenever possible, William.
Thank you.
So
I think that's all the time we have right now. If you didn't have a burning question and didn't ask it, it's your fault, but you can do it again in Denver. No, if you can't join us in Denver, by all means, send it our way and we'll make sure Chris and his team gets it. We'd love to see you all in Denver. Through the generosity of Microsoft, we actually have a handful of some scholarship passes available. Contact us, just hello at AIIM. Tell us if you've got a budgetary constraint, and we will do whatever we can to get you there. And it won't be long now. So thanks again, Chris, and thanks to all of you who tuned in with us today. I'm Peggy Winton for AIIM, and for all of us, we'll see you next time. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.